Wednesday morning, wake up. I'm in my bathroom on the bidet, sitting there, just doing my thing, and I get a text from Fern, and he goes, the text first there was like a couple casual texts,
Was
like
it?
you must have,
Well,
yeah,
oh no, I think I responded to a question that you sent me the night before. We won't say why
okay,
you sent it
oh
so late,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah,
right,
we were just talking about that. Yeah.
yeah. So and then all of a sudden you were like, dude, if I have to come to Boulder, I will, to get the new CEO on the podcast or something. And I was like, what is he talking about? And then so very quickly my mind went to Fern's fucking with me, to Fern is being trolled. Like because I'm like Googling it and nothing is available yet. And then finally you were like, check your email. And I was on my iPad. I have like no social stuff on my iPad, so I don't get too out of control there, per Todd, right? Todd, digital minimalism. And
Yep.
and then, so I'm like, Fern is getting messed with. Like, what is he talking about? And then I see the email that the three of us got, as well as the rest of staff from Castro, new CEO. So here we are, 2 days later now. We're recording the next day, but this is up on Friday. We've got a new CEO, new owner of CrossFit. Something I told many, many people would never happen. Like, well, Roz is in here too. She said I said that to her as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't really think it would happen either, to be honest with you. I think most people thought that would never happen, particularly not at the speed at which it happened. So it probably happened it probably happened inside of 2 weeks. If we go a little bit past the incident, whatever, and then the announcement yesterday, which
Dude, we're only
they
2 weeks
alluded
out. We're only 2 weeks out from it.
That's
It
what
was
I'm saying.
a
And they said
Saturday.
this conversation started about a week ago, I think is what.
Or I know a couple weeks ago, I think.
The
So
So
almost was immediately.
the infamous quote unquote tweet happened on June 6th. So
And the announcement.
This is the 25th. The announcement was the 24th. So that's
18 days.
Okay. So we're
Tweet
3
to
weeks.
so fast.
Tweet to an announced
Right.
CEO was 18 days. Now, to be clear, there's a lot of talk. I don't think anything is finalized, which to me is surprising. I don't know about such a large acquisition, if this is normally the case, Todd. Maybe you know better. Do they usually just assume it's going to go through?
I believe so. I mean, they obviously have enough information to know that it's
they would
going to happen.
announce it, yeah.
That they would announce it, because they wouldn't do it otherwise. That's as we were just discussing. I'm sure the idea of this happened a few weeks ago. The agreement had to happen, days before this as well. And
yeah,
they must
that's
have gone through
that's not a short contract.
Well, yeah, it's not like Monday they go, yeah, that's a deal, and they shake hands virtually or whatever, like we did on your signing or whatever, your mortgage signing.
Todd was my witness. Todd was the witness on my mortgage signing.
Worst experience of all time. But anyway, so yeah, there's no way I would assume that they would announce something. This isn't off the cuff. That's my.
I think it's pretty standard. I think it's pretty standard with regard to the SEC for acquisitions this large. Like I do think there has to be some sort of approval process, because I think they said they're waiting on some government approval.
Yeah, he did mention that on the call, which I was wondering what that really meant.
So anyway, yeah. So elaborate on that. So like we had a call with Eric. I don't know if we call him boss or whatever yet, but we'll just call him Eric.
I just call him dude. He's
dude. So we had an hour. I don't know, how long was the call?
It was close to an hour.
Yeah. So
it was definitely. Well, but I want to go back a second before we talk about that call. Speculate. Glassman sends the tweet. When do you think he realizes I got to sell this thing?
He sends a text immediately afterwards.
You think it was like, I fucked up, I need to get it out? I mean,
no, I think you did. The pressure didn't really hit hard until Sunday, right? So Monday was when.
No, but then
maybe mid to end of that first week.
I think later.
I think later. I think later on that week, when when things started to get a little bit more serious with regard to people wanting to leave and stuff like that. So.
And I think it was, when I said podcast, I meant Andy Stump's podcast.
Well, I don't know because
it had to happen before that because that was on Friday. That was like
that was the 12th. That was the 12th. So that was 10 days ago.
Right. So that's enough time for him to say, okay, this got really serious. This could get bad. I need to cover my ass. I mean, you never know, but I mean,
it could be, but it doesn't matter. You know, like
all that speculation is kind of irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, just interesting to consider. So we get this email, we get a phone call. There were numerous phone calls that happened yesterday. I hopped on the wrong one for a minute till Todd told me to get off. So I get off that call. And in fairness, we had an email to get on it. And then we had our staff call with the new CEO, Dave Castro, as well, kind of facilitating the phone call. And yeah, it was our first experience. So the guys based out of Boulder. I'll probably grab some Starbucks with them later today. Maybe a little.
I bet you will.
Maybe go hit a workout at CrossFit's. And
you should buy.
I should buy what, Starbucks?
Yeah, you should buy his Starbucks for him.
So let's talk a little bit about his background. He's some sort of data guy, right? And
I believe DataLogix, what he had was, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe it's obviously digital company, but I believe it was marketing. I think it was a marketing platform, and it was like one of the biggest marketing platforms out there. He sold in 2015. If you want to look at the dollar figure, it's a pretty easy Google, but it wasn't a small amount of money. Let's put it that way.
1 billion 25 million, I think.
Yeah,
1.2 billion to Oracle, which is an even larger company, obviously. And he brought CrossFit to both of those companies.
Yeah, there's some good articles about him doing that I've seen in the New York Times, as well as I think it was Fortune. But let's be clear, a lot of people have this misconception that he owned 100% of this company and made $1 billion. He was a part owner. Now, he still made probably 30 plus million. Like he still did very well, but he's not a billionaire.
Where did you get that? Like, how did you
come
up with that?
Coming up with that? And what's it matter?
I've talked to people about it. What are you guys questioning me?
Because that sounds suspect as fuck. That's why.
And what's it matter?
And it doesn't matter.
I'm just trying to set the background, because a lot of people are going to hear this and be like, he's a billionaire. He should be doing X, Y, and Z.
He might be a billionaire. Well. We don't know. That was 5 years ago. Like, if he invested it correctly, and he owns multiple companies, I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter. The dude is uber wealthy. That's not the point.
If you listen to Todd's financial advice, his investment, are you his financial advisor, Todd?
Not yet. That's the email I sent.
And I don't clearly if he purchases CrossFit, he's wealthy. Now, how wealthy? Who cares?
But that's my point too. He did not buy CrossFit outright. He's part of a VC. He's part of a venture capital fund. Was that what it's called? VC, Todd? Venture capitalist. He's part of that. He's even said it on the call yesterday that he's part of this. He has unlimited capital, but he's the CEO. He's the head guy.
Right. Exactly. That's the main point. That's what we wanted to get to, because all the rest of the stuff you're talking about is pretty irrelevant.
All right. So what's relevant?
He's the guy.
He's relevant?
The guy. He's the guy. So what do you guys think?
I think my first impression was solid leader. Like, pretty good leadership, the kind of guy that'll get troops rallied. Like, clearly he's been in front of a huge boardroom, dozens, if not 100 people at a time, leading the way. I can see like a Steve Jobs-esque type presentation where he's on the stage presenting something. I feel like this is
hopefully he's not a massive asshole like Steve Jobs was.
I feel like you guys are ganging up today. What's going on? What's up?
Nobody cares about any of this. Like, I want to talk about what value he brings to the organization.
Not what he's going to look like standing on the stage.
Who gives
That's
a
irrelevant.
Shit? You're doing a horrible job at guiding this conversation. Be really
you take over, Fern. Tell me what you think.
Jeez.
What I think is important is what background he brings. So he obviously comes from a digital space, digital marketing that was acquired by a large company. So what I think is uber interesting is that you take what is I think we could agree that there's not enough money for you to pay for the branding and the recognition that CrossFit has currently. Like you could not pay enough money for that, for people to look at something with no words attached to it and immediately come to a conclusion like that's CrossFit. Because that's what I would assume if I saw somebody doing thrusters and pull-ups, right? So like just the worldwide brand recognition that you have. And then we could also fairly, how would we say, I don't want to say criticize, but we could give a fair assessment that CrossFit, the organization, has done little to no digital marketing in a world that is basically digital today. So that's what I find incredibly interesting, is that you have this guy who comes from that space, and then you attach that expertise and that background and that amount of resources and connections and attach it to an already recognized global brand. That to me should be frightening for everybody who's not CrossFit in the fitness space.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say I agree with that. I think I think that's a great point of where we've had a presence online, but definitely not to that degree. And so what he's going to be able to do there, plus just the experience he has on the business side of things, leading a company that was obviously at one point was a similar size, and he was able to take it to a much larger size. So I'm curious to see and excited for the possibilities on what he does to continue to grow the brand and the company and everything associated with it. And he obviously has the experience in that field as far as building a brand and growing a company, and doing it in a way that obviously is successful. So I'm excited for that as well.
And he's a CrossFitter. Like he's not like just a quasi CrossFitter. That's what I think people should actually know about him.
Yeah, to be an affiliate owner, to have his level 2, like
that's what I think is the coolest part, which he got, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean,
he said he did not do very well.
Well, this is who cares?
No, I'm just.
I do. He was very honest about that too. That he's just like, I'm not a good coach, basically. But that's what I think is cool. And timeline and context matters. You're talking about a guy who sells his business for gobloads of money, and then takes his level 2. Like that's how much this dude is into CrossFit, because he owns his affiliate. Obviously, doesn't need to own an affiliate,
Right, but that also is going to bring a lot of perspective. I mean, he's inside the walls of a gym, of a CrossFit box, which really I don't know much of the leadership prior to him coming in has had that experience. Maybe in the earlier days when gyms were a lot different than they are now. So to have that current
almost
experience,
none.
Right, exactly. So to have that specific experience and to be able to walk into that leadership role and at least have an idea of, what he's experienced as an affiliate owner, and therefore try to put something in place to continue to guide and support the rest of affiliates. I think I'm excited for that as well. You've got somebody that's walking, that has walked the same walk that us affiliate owners are. And so now it makes me even more excited to still be a part of the affiliate system and see what he's going to do for the rest of the affiliates out there.
Now, granted, he's our current boss, but let me play a little devil's advocate here. I don't think he has the same affiliate ownership experience that the three of us have.
No, he doesn't, but he has some perspective, which is a lot different than like the executive perspective where you're like, yeah, it's a gym. I know what happens in there. And I know, like, to some degree, he might have unlimited resources that many other affiliates do not have, but he sees the process. He sees what's going on and understands some of the issues that we deal with. So I think that at least gives him some perspective.
Well, he talked about it yesterday on the call about his affiliate, and he's like, listen, we're just bleeding cash because the business is closed and the rent that they have there is not cheap. I mean, so just literally, and now, so I agree with you 1000%, Todd, which some people are like, well, it doesn't matter to him. And I'm like, it kind of doesn't matter if it matters to him or not. The fact of the matter is that he is aware of it because he's literally going through it simultaneously with everybody else. Like that's what's important. Like whether he can absorb the cost or not is kind of not the point. The point is like he owns an affiliate that is going through the same hardships. And I mean, we'll just throw it out there. Just because you're wealthy doesn't mean that you're totally cool with money, like just losing money.
I agree with that.
You know?
I agree with that. And
You know?
I don't want to say what it was. You guys heard him say it, but on the call, he had something very valuable in mind for affiliates in the very near future that he's working on.
What he said in the call, no, but I mean, well, you could talk generally about it because again, he was very, I thought he was very realistic about what he said, which is like, hey, there's a lot of things we want to address. I don't know if we're going to get them right. He said, but we're going to take a lot of feedback and we're going to push to try to make sure that everybody, the stakeholders is what you call it, the stakeholders get taken care of, right? And one of them was the affiliates, right? So like making sure that that is something that can thrive long term, you know. So like he's not naive to like what that group of stakeholders needs and looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure he had an opinion on what, you know, CrossFit HQ did and did not offer to affiliates going into this. So I'm sure that will give him perspective on, you know, where there's opportunity and what he can do better, you know.
And I want to throw this out there. If you guys Google him and do some research, almost every article that mentions that he owns CrossFit's Anita, somewhere in that article says one of the top 5 CrossFit gyms in the world. Where does that come from?
That's called good SEO, my friend, which isn't shocking coming from a guy who owns a digital marketing company.
I'm just wondering, I mean, based on what? Like, I'm just, you know, goofing on it, but it's always funny. He even mentioned on the call, like somewhere in an article, it said he had run 100 miles and he said he hadn't. But it's always funny the liberty that some of these, you know, journalists take with like, oh, top 5 affiliate. I mean, you got CrossFit Drive 1, right?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Wait, how'd I get second place on that?
Yeah.
I just, you know, it's very arbitrary.
I've been around longer.
Well,
that's true.
Jay actually had Albany CrossFit number 1.
You had the top 3. You had
I had the top 3. You guys rounded on the top 5.
He's previously owned 3 affiliates. So in case anybody didn't know that.
Yeah, if you guys didn't know that, Jay had affiliates long ago.
Well,
but no, I thought, you know, like he's a CrossFitter. I mean, like it was cool, you know, knowing the little that we do know about him, you know, having not had a chance to interact with him or any stuff like that. I think it's very cool to see an affiliate owner buy the company. And if you think about the organic nature and growth of CrossFit, that we probably would have never predicted that. Like we had all these other companies or people in mind, but to think like, oh, there's an affiliate owner out there who's like, no, I'm interested in that. Now, I think that's just like
cool.
Like you couldn't possibly, in my mind, like come up with a better scenario. You're like somebody who like is absolutely entrenched, and not somebody who just started an affiliate 2 years ago, like 10 years.
2010,
yeah, he's had an affiliate for 10 years. So that's what I think is really, really cool. And that's what I'm looking forward to. In addition to all the other things that he brings from a background, and he was not shy about stating his desire to put a lot of resources into the company and into the games, you know, because that's coming up, like which I think is all fantastic. I think all of those things should happen. So to have somebody come to the table who's like, yeah, we're going to push and we're really going to make this happen is exciting. You know, like, I don't know where you guys feel, but I've always been excited about training, or like wearing the red shirt, going to seminars. Like, I think it is the shit. It's the best job in the world next to owning an affiliate. But I don't know that I've ever been this excited about the company of CrossFit.
I want to talk about what it means to the training staff, and I want to talk about what it means to the games, but I also want to talk about his 240 Fran time. I have a feeling he didn't lock out every thruster because he just looks a little tight in the shoulder. So just from the video that I saw, he looks a little tight. He's a runner. I just want to see his 240 Fran before.
Are you upset that now the CEO's fitter than you?
Yeah, because my best Fran time is 246.
Oh, well.
And I just think it should be fair.
He sent us a video of that not too long ago, right?
Yeah, but don't you have like a 4-inch range of motion?
Yeah, he looks taller than I am.
Everybody's taller than you. We're not debating that. Yeah.
But he looks like, you know, like a Todd lockout, like suspect at the top.
Low below, dude.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So
All right.
let you brought up the games, Fern. What do we think's going to happen now? I mean, let's assume the games happens. I know there was a delay. Do you think the games athletes that pulled out are coming back on board?
Maybe not this year, but 100. Everybody, and so let me air this out. I think everybody should come back because it's good for everybody.
If people were complaining they need a change, like we said earlier on, 18 days. Come
Holy
on,
shit, dude.
The change was made.
Here's what I would like, right? I would like everybody to basically start to get along, and everybody should acknowledge what needs to be acknowledged, right? Which is some people made decisions because they thought that was best, and some people are like, well, if you stayed, you didn't make any change. And there's another group of people who are like, well, if you left, you didn't make any change. And I kind of fall in the middle. I think like people are like, oh, all the affiliates that left was a huge financial hit to CrossFit. Mathematically, no, it was not. Like if you just do the math, it was not. But it doesn't mean it didn't have any effect. Right. And then internally, there was a lot of people that were pushing for change. And I think that had, in my personal opinion, I think that had a more significant effect. Right. But now what I would like everybody to do is be like, cool, we got what we wanted. Can we give CrossFit a pat on the back for doing something pretty fucking significant and I'll just move on. Like, that's what I would like to see.
I agree. I mean, games athletes, you took your stance. Affiliate owners, you took your stance. You know, even when Glassman retired and Castro became CEO, that was a change. But this is what everyone wanted. I mean, according to them. So if they continue to stay out, I don't know what they're trying to prove or what they're trying to gain at that point. Todd, I mean, you guys both know I withdrew my games application. I'm not going to compete this year, but Todd,
it's good because you were really bringing the judging. You were really bringing the judging team down. So I'm glad you withdrew that.
You're the only guy that doesn't know how to actually get there. He's trying to apply like it's a job. Hey, I've sent in an application. I haven't gotten anything back. Whether you guys even saw my application, I really.
He was like, yeah, our response is in the mail. Yeah, it's just waiting.
If you were going to compete and you withdrew, was this enough for you to say, okay, I'm back?
I mean, I don't know what else you're looking for. Like there was a demand for change. Change happened when Castro became CEO. Then there was more demand. We need Greg out and he needs to not own the company. It's like, you've gotten that now. Now, that also being said, I've also still seen and heard like demands for a board of directors and demands for all these different things that continue to need to have more diversity with leadership and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, we're 18 days in, the company's getting sold. A lot of stuff has happened and it's happened relatively quickly. I'm very pacified with the fact that has happened. And I think there will continue to be more changes. Obviously, you don't run as successful of a business as he did previously without kind of knowing how to construct a leadership team at the top. And so for all of that stuff being said, if I had been one of those people that said I was either sitting out of the games or I was de-affiliating, like, I think I've got what I wanted and now I'm coming back in, especially if you're a games athlete, what is this? This is your livelihood, right? So, no better way to make a statement than to show up and actually, make an impact at the games and kind of make a stand with things there. So I would hope and expect that everybody comes back.
I think the game surpasses what it was in 2016 in the next 2 years. I think it starts to move at a breakneck pace and becomes this thing that, even knowing what we know the games has been up to this point, I don't think we actually comprehend what it can and will be based on. There's always been this tension between CrossFit or the games, right? It was this either or thing, where it's just like, hey, they both can't coexist. And I mean, I think everybody realizes that, yes, there are some negatives, but I don't necessarily think there have to be negatives involved. But I think it's all about how you manage it, right? And it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing we were talking about yesterday when you have these members that are kind of like, in air quotes, the problem children, who's like, well, yeah, just figure out how to sort it out so that they are actually valuable to the gym and you can be valuable to them. And they don't have to exist with this friction in the middle. They can serve each other. And I think this is cool because I think he understands that. And I think that's what everybody wants them to be.
Well,
right?
it's pretty clear and well known that Glassman obviously was a big part of the games to begin with. I mean, he was there in 2007 handing out $500 cash to the winners. But at some point, he realized the games grew and it wasn't what he wanted, say. Where, and it still grew to that level. So can you imagine having a CEO on board with the games, willing to put money behind it? If it grew to that level, despite the CEO, imagine what's going to happen when the CEO is all for it. I mean,
And
it's
then
just going to be
and has resources. That's the big thing too.
Yeah.
Is the resources that are going to come behind it, I think, is going to be big, because I think there was some questions, with concern around Reebok, backing out going forward. And it's like, all right, well, where does prize money come from? Where are sponsorships? And I think I got to assume that he has some relationships that potentially can bring in more sponsorship, but I don't think there'll ever be another title sponsor behind the game, because it doesn't seem that that'll be needed. And two, even if he doesn't bring other big sponsors, like, it sounds like he's got the resources to back the games and the prize monies and everything else. And what was it?
I think there will be
double,
triple down. He said, yeah, I do think there will be another title sponsor, because like, he's a businessman, and some business is going to want to pay astronomical amount of money to be a title sponsor because of the ROI based on that.
He also
think about Reebok. Think about Reebok. Like Reebok and CrossFit kind of like were good for each other because it was good timing.
For both of them. I agree. I agree with that, but I feel like going forward, Coach Glassman wasn't interested in something going above CrossFit Games, the Reebok CrossFit Games going forward. Now that he's out of the picture, I would also kind of assume, if this was me personally coming into this, if I'm now the sole owner of CrossFit and I've got some resources, I don't know why I'd put somebody's name above mine before the CrossFit Games. Why not have the CrossFit Games, and you can have some sort of other sponsor, or maybe not a title sponsor. And I think they'll have multiple sponsors. That's my opinion. That's my thought process at this point, but who knows?
Well, he also
mentioned what direction it goes in now.
He mentioned UFC, and I forget what other company he mentioned.
Ironman.
Ironman. Right. And, I don't know much about Ironman, but I know UFC, they don't have, the Reebok UFC 257, they pay their athletes based on pay-per-view sales and ticket sales. And I'm sure there are some, they have Reebok as a sponsor for those.
All that stuff. Yeah.
It can be that, he could take it to a pay-per-view model. He could take it to a ticket sales to this, the Open covers that, where you might have some sponsorships along the way. But I agree with Todd. I don't think there's ever going to be a name in front of CrossFit.
No, and I would agree.
Modelo's beer or Bud Light or Fit 8 or whatever on the competition floor, but it would still be the CrossFit Games.
And my guess is they're going to pay way more than what the previous title sponsor.
Well, if they're smart, they would, because, I mean, I think you said triple. I think he actually said quadruple down. So
probably. And
the
point is he was just like all in on it, because I think he realizes what that does for the brand. And for those people that are a little weary about the games bypassing the importance of the affiliates, I at least right now, I feel like that's not an issue, because I think we're talking about somebody who understands that these two things feed each other, right?
I
So
agree.
if there's more CrossFit affiliates, then the Open grows, right? And if they can grow this brand such that it is financially, because I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, there was always talk about how the games were upside down financially. They're like, they'd never made any money. But if this becomes something that is an actual revenue generator, because it has more resources and it becomes more appealing to sponsors, well, then that only helps CrossFit and CrossFit affiliates, because he was very blunt about stating that he wants to provide resources for the affiliates in some way, shape, or form. And we don't want to dive into that because they haven't gotten that far. But I think they're going to be floating models of like whatever it is that you want. It's going to be like a buffet. Like if you just want to pay the affiliate fee, cool. But if you want to maybe have more resources, then they'll try to maybe put something together. But like nobody knows what that looks like at this point. But the point is, it's like it's on his radar and he gets it.
Well, and think about the UFC model that he mentioned, or even the triathlon model. I agree. Like when the games were at its height, once we all got past the fact that people realized I don't have to be games level to go to a box, the games was great for affiliates. And if that winds up being on CBS or ESPN again, more exposure to CrossFit is more exposure to CrossFit. It will ultimately trickle down, no different than the UFC. I mean, all of the jiu-jitsu schools that are open around the country benefit because people watch the UFC. And then you always have the delusional bunch that show up thinking they're going to be a fighter. And then you have the normal people that are like, I just want to train jiu-jitsu. And the same is going to happen at the affiliate level. Let me bring up 2 points. One, going back to the games athletes, I think this is their opportunity to be of use to the community. They took their stance, they helped out, they made a change, but they realize they have an influence. Like, be a positive influence right now and get the community behind this guy and back on board with CrossFit. If you sit there and you continue to, try to act like you're more important than you are and stay out of this because of this and this, you're actually hurting the community. A change was made. Use your influence on social media and tell your followers, the people that, care about what you have to say, like, let's give this guy a chance and let's do this for CrossFit.
That is one thing that has been supremely annoying to me, is that I just feel like there's a lack of awareness that it's safe to say if the games went away, there's still going to be CrossFit affiliates. There is no CrossFit games without CrossFit affiliates. None of these athletes have like anything without, they all train in affiliates, right? So it's just like, have some awareness and I don't know, a little bit of humility and say like, listen, you got change, but now like, cool, let's get back on board and let's push this thing because that is going to be good for them long term. And long term is actually probably short term within 12 to 18 months. So it's just like, listen, like everybody stop with the grandstanding. And again, if that was your choice to make a stand, I get it, but
you did it.
It doesn't need it. Yeah, you did it. It's cool. Move on. Like, let's all be like, we got the change that we wanted. Don't continue to be the squeaky wheel for no particular reason other than you want to be heard.
Yeah. If you don't show up this year, don't show up ever again. That's my opinion.
Oh man. And Jay's going to apply for your spot if you back out in years going forward. Application.
I was already offered Katrin's spot. Castro emailed me. He's like, look, we're thinking about throwing you in with the girls this year. I was like, that's not fair for me.
The teens, teen girls. Yeah. No, where you would still get smashed.
No.
Yeah.
Can I beat
the 60 plus?
Can I beat the 14, 15-year-old girls?
No. Do you see that girl? Was she clean and jerk like a couple years ago? Something like way.
There was one girl recently.
Jerk,
that one girl recently I saw on Instagram hit not Tia's 270, but it was up there.
It was like 235, 240.
Yeah, it was like a 235 clean and jerk. I was like, fuck, that girl's stronger than me. What do you think about regionals? They coming back?
I don't know, man. I'm interested to see. That's one thing where I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, right?
Imagine all the people that put in effort for sanctionals, the Live and Loud crew that have like 7 sanctionals now, all the work behind it to find out regionals are back.
Well, and they might have done that to themselves because they all, like, if most of them backed out of the affiliation with CrossFit, they've just kind of freed CrossFit back up to take control of that portion of the season again, if that's the case. And so it's like
that is an important point, like across the board. If
everybody's still a CrossFit sanctioned event, then I think CrossFit's kind of handcuffed based on whatever contract they have. But I think those are probably yearly contracts. I doubt they're long term. But by backing out, you give all the power back to CrossFit. And I think some of the rumors that I heard were that the media rights were what other companies were looking to pay for, and that was the way that that CrossFit was going to be able to monetize the games, was by selling the open, the regionals, and the games to whoever it is that wanted to buy them. And because they spread it out to all of these different companies doing sanctionals, they had lost some power, and maybe the sanctionals gave it right back to them. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how that plays.
Right. Based on what he was saying, based on what Eric was saying, if he really wants to take it to UFC level, you have the 7, 8, maybe 10 regionals again. Push those out. You're making money, like you said, Todd. Whether it's pay-per-view or just monetizing the viewership online. I mean, regionals were, like you mentioned. I think the games itself made money over or broke even overall because of the open, because of maybe a little bit, but the regionals were really where they got hit hard. And if they were smart about it with a guy like this behind it, and they can learn how to monetize those, now all of a sudden you can have this season going on. I think there's a lot of things. And yeah, it'd be interesting to find out if just the fact that they said, hey, we're out, constitutes, hey, the contract is over, versus, hey, we didn't, officially
Well,
say it. Like, I'd be interested to see what that comes out.
I think contractually there's a lot of people in breach, but I don't know because I have no idea what those contracts look like.
Once
But
again, Rogue did it right? They
right.
kept their event going. They took out the word CrossFit, but they.
What I think is interesting, and this is kind of piggybacking a little bit off what Todd was saying, is that I think this is an interesting time. So if we think about all of the other entities that exist in the CrossFit ecosystem, like whether they're business oriented or whether they're apparel based or whatever, they were all filling a void that, I don't know, it's probably fair to say, that was intentionally left there by Glassman because he didn't want to do those things, right? And I'm not saying CrossFit's going to come back in and fill all those voids, but I think it's fair to say they're going to start filling some of them because I think based on what we talked about yesterday, I think he feels that CrossFit is obligated to do so because of the brand and how many people follow the brand. What I think is interesting is there's a lot of people who broke off there to do their own thing, who were filling this void, are now in a precarious situation where the company is now going to fill that void, and now you're competing with a 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is probably not the best place to be.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about values once in a while, and one of my top values is loyalty. And I hope the companies that remain loyal get rewarded, and I hope the companies that weren't loyal, not that they get punished, but that they, that it's noted and then it's recognized. And not that we fall into any of these categories. I get it. Some of these companies, whether it's starting their own affiliates, branching off, etc. I just think I wasn't always pleased. We talked about it numerous times with the reaction that everybody had, the speed in which they have it, and I just feel like a lot of effort was made on the back end. We don't have to, beat a dead horse. 18 days is insane. It's crazy, and people were jumping ship immediately, and I just felt like it was so reactive. Those that stuck around, the Drive Fitnesses of the world, the CrossFit Rice, the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. Hey, we don't need a reward, but I just feel like I hope CrossFit recognizes that. Maybe that's just my
Here's what I think.
opinion.
I think it will all come out in the wash. I don't think there's going to be intentional, kind of bleeding of other people. I don't think anybody's going to get inordinately rewarded for doing one thing or the other. I think it's just going to play out the way it's going to play out, right? Again, because if I were to take my business and just pivot it and reposition, and immediately 3 weeks later, I'm like, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do now. Maybe that was done in haste and this was a little too quickly. If I try to turn it and go back the other way, I've created an additional problem on those. So like at some point, like you have to either die on that sword or recognize that like I'm going to have to create additional damage to my own business by flip-flopping back and forth. Which again, we've all talked about this before, which was the biggest criticism, at least on my part, was just the lack of patience. Right? Everybody's like, we jumped ship, and I'm like, listen, I get it. Like you didn't want to do that, but the point is like, that wasn't the only option. That was always my contention. Like there were other options other than just leaving, which is like, we could wait 5 seconds and see what happens and then make our decision. And this is where I think a lot of people have, I don't want to say shot themselves in the foot, but again, put themselves in a weird spot where they're like rebranding, and now you see this. And if I'm one of those people that rebranded or spun off another business that we were going to do our own community fitness or something, like I'm probably sweating bullets at this point, knowing who this is coming in, what he plans to do. And essentially, I look at it this way. I see all the things happening that everybody ever wanted to happen in CrossFit now happening. That's me being the optimist. But like they're at least really, really looking good from a business standpoint. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
No, I agree with you. I think that's a great place to start to wrap it up if Todd wants to take it.
No, I was going to say, I'm definitely optimistic of the future. Now, that being said, this doesn't erase all of the backlash that's been put out there. I think there's plenty of work to be done to kind of make up for some of the goodwill that CrossFit lost. But I do think we've got to, somebody that's capable and able to move us in the right direction. I'm, still proud to be a part of the brand and to fly that flag nice and high. And I think I'm with you that I'm optimistic that I think there's going to be a lot of cool things coming forward. And I think there's only room for growth and good things to happen.
Yeah, and I think realistically, good. Yeah, I think 18 to 24 months. Yeah, it's 18 to 24 months is realistic before everybody's just like, yeah, okay, we're past it. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
So in other words, if Eric Roza is listening, we give you our approval. We're giving you 18 to 24 months.
We'll sign off on the acquisition is what we're saying.
Yeah, and we're okay with it. If you need a witness, Todd has experience.
Yeah. I'll finish my workout, come straight in. No
Todd
shirt,
comes to
sweating.
my virtual mortgage closing, no shirt, dripping sweat.
Out of breath.
Yeah, it was entertaining. But anyway, Eric, we stand behind you, and we look forward to seeing what's to come, and affiliates, games athletes, and just anyone that's involved in CrossFit. We think that he deserves at least this chance to prove himself. Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.